I've been lucky. I've been going since 1984, so I know China pretty well. And then there's still the remarkable development.
I don't believe the renminbi will be a viable reserve currency.
China is growing, becoming powerful.
China will be a comparable power.
China acts like a strict parent when it disappears dissidents.
Singapore, China, the whole region is a very, very exciting
power of the Chinese inventiveness is a force for the world.
China.
In 2021, Ray Dalio published his famous book, The Changing World Order: Why Nations Succeed and Fail.
This has been written about a lot. Like Ray Dalio's book, which is called The Changing World Order, it talks about, there's a declining current superpower, and then there's this ascending power right now. Right now, that one is China. And if you look back over history, you can kind of see these cycles and how these reserve currencies, the country with that reserve currency status, it changes.
On the surface, it looks like a very intellectual book by the most successful hedge fund manager ever. It's full of data and graphs. We even made a video based on it a while back. But the more we looked into the book and Ray Dalio, we realized that it's just a clever piece of Chinese propaganda. Well, the only logical conclusion a person can have after reading the book is that, wow, I guess I better learn Mandarin and join Team China and invest in China since the West is going down. See, Ray Dalio has done a great job presenting himself as this old, wise genius investor that's just looking at trends, the principles, the numbers. He's the greatest hedge fund manager ever after all, and people believe him. Short of Warren Buffett, he's the #1 investor that people look up to today. But in reality, Ray Dalio lives a double life. One that is a carefully crafted persona that the public sees, and another life that he pays a lot of money to keep under wraps. Drugs, strippers, public humiliations, a terrifying temper that keeps people around him on thin ice.
What I really wanted to do was to show people that this version of Ray Dalio, that he spent so much money promoting, and that so many people have just taken hook, line, and sinker, is really not the complete version of Ray. And if you talk to really anyone around Ray, current or former at Bridgewater, they really never believed that version of Ray. And to me, in a way, it made my life easier because he's made himself so famous, and the truth is so different from what he's made it out to be.
And to top it all off, if there's any one single person responsible for selling out the West to China, it's Ray Dalio. And we can see how well that's been going, right?
Chinese economy is meeting some challenges now.
China's real estate industry is collapsing in slow motion.
Warning that China is currently experiencing a banking system collapse and that investors should pay close attention to trillions of dollars in real estate losses, Hayman Capitals.
But why? Why is Ray Dalio like this? Well, Ray Dalio has a long history of admiring the Chinese communist system. He's basically a mix of the Wolf of Wall Street and the ultimate China shill, and we're gonna expose it all in this documentary. This is Ray Dalio, the man who sold out the West to China. Ray Dalio's history with China goes back many decades. In 1984, Ray Dalio visited China for the first time at the invitation of the CITIC, a government-owned conglomerate of real estate banking and mining businesses, and it was love at first sight. Something about Chinese society just seemed to make sense to him more than any other country he had visited. Under China's communist president Deng Xiaoping, the Chinese people were always forced to put the country first. He saw how being promised massive rewards in the long run made people willing to give up their short-term dreams and wants. For pesky things like food and water. In 2019, he told one of his Bridgewater employees, "Curiosity brought me in contact with the Chinese people, who I really came to love and admire for the character of them." Ray Dalio was so obsessed with China, its government, and its culture that he even sent his 11-year-old son to live with a local family and go to school in Beijing for a year. He didn't care that the Chinese government was being accused of horrifying human rights abuses. Something about China's autocratic government just seemed right to Dalio, and that got him thinking. If this system could work for China for an entire country, why couldn't it work for a company too? A company like Bridgewater, for example, his hedge fund. Here's the thing about being a hedge fund manager, is that it's really hard to beat the markets. I mean, take a look at Bridgewater. It's the biggest hedge fund in the world, and yet Bridgewater's funds have underperformed the market almost every single year since 2005. And Bridgewater has especially been doing bad in the last couple years. See, there's only so much you can do as just another hedge fund manager in America short of insider trading. So that's when Ray Dalio got an idea. If it's too hard to win in America, if it's too hard to do sketchy stuff in America, why not just go to sketchy countries with less rules and more corruption and set up shop there? It would be much easier to get higher returns, and what better country than your beloved China? So Ray Dalio schmoozed up with the CCP, and in 2011, Bridgewater opened up its first Beijing office. And now all of a sudden, Ray Dalio had a very, very strong incentive to promote China to the world. Today, China has become one of Bridgewater's biggest clients. Dalio's firm has more than $5 billion of the CCP's money. In total, all the CCP's different committees and groups have invested more than $10 billion with Bridgewater, while Bridgewater has also opened up more offices in China and manages more than $3 billion there as a foreign hedge fund. So assuming Bridgewater has around $13 billion in total from China, at a 2% management fee, that means Dalio is earning $250 million every year from China. Would you hype up China if they were paying you $260 million every year like clockwork, not including any other fees on the gains? Which is why every single time Ray Dalio is asked about China, his answer is always something along the lines of how fast it's growing or how big it's gonna get. But Dalio isn't dumb. He knows that if he's too positive about China, it just wouldn't come off right. It would come off too shilly. So he'll sprinkle a little criticism here and there, all while still reminding people how bright the country's future is.
China will be a comparable power, let's call it. Stronger in some ways, less strong in other ways. It is likely that it will pass the United States, but not certain.
I don't believe the renminbi will be a viable reserve currency quickly, but I do believe it'll happen much faster than anybody expects.
And it all accumulated with the release of his book, The Changing World Order, where the entire book is basically designed to sell you on the fact that China is the future, the West is in decline, so you should just accept China's inevitable dominance, you shouldn't fight against destiny, and you should invest. Now, $13 billion might not sound like a lot of money in the hedge fund world, but it's not so much about how much Chinese money Bridgewater has now, it's more about how much Chinese money Bridgewater stands to get in the future. You see, it's insanely difficult for any foreign hedge fund, let alone one from America, to get a license to operate in China. Bridgewater is one of just 23 other foreign asset managers allowed to work there. And while all the other firms are only allowed to offer typical investments, thanks to Ray Dalio kissing their butts, Bridgewater is allowed to set up almost any alternative investment fund it wants with no restrictions. And with all this special treatment from the CCP, this gives Dalio a massive edge. He can do pretty much whatever he wants in China, as long as he doesn't step on the CCP's toes. Ray Dalio says you gotta invest in China while it's at the ground floor before they become the next superpower. But come on, if a guy like Dalio knew an investment was gonna make him insane amounts of money, why would he tell anyone else? Why would anyone with inside information like he claims to have, why would they want to share that? They wouldn't. They would want to keep it all to themselves so they can make the most money. But that's not really what's happening here, is it? Dalio isn't sharing this massive tip with millions of people out of the goodness of his heart. No, he wants to get as many Westerners to throw their money into China as possible, so the CCP keeps throwing money at him. And it's been working. Since the firm started investing in China, even though Bridgewater has been doing horribly in America since 2005, Bridgewater has been magically doing great in China, probably because of all the inside information and support from the CCP. Which means Ray Dalio's move into China is the only thing still making him look good right now, and he knows it. Without all this money and special treatment from China, he wouldn't be half as rich as he is today. So it's not very surprising to find out that China isn't the only country he's targeted like this either. In 2015, before his big push into China, he tried getting into Putin's pants first. Dalio actually managed to visit Putin in Russia in 2018, but he kept the visit a secret from everyone at Bridgewater and nothing ever seemed to come from it. And now the next country he seems to be targeting is the United Arab Emirates. So if Ray Dalio suddenly starts calling the UAE the world's next superpower, at least now you will know the reason why. In November 2023, veteran Wall Street hedge fund reporter Rob Copeland published a book that made us question everything we know about Bridgewater and Ray Dalio. While researching the book, Copeland managed to get a long list of ex-Bridgewater employees to talk about what life was like in the firm, and what they had to say was not pretty. On one of his trips to China, Ray Dalio became fascinated with China's new social credit system. In the system, the Chinese government tracked the behavior of every single one of its citizens. If a Chinese citizen does something as small as jaywalking, their social credit score goes down. And if their score drops too low, they could be denied loans, social benefits, or even blocked from getting a job. The Chinese government said the goal of the system is to create a culture of sincerity, and Ray Dalio loved it. When he got back to the US, he wasted no time implementing the same kind of social credit system at Bridgewater. But for the social credit system to work, Bridgewater employees would need a comprehensive list of what was right and wrong. Enter principles, a list of Ray Dalio's rules on exactly what he expects from Bridgewater employees. Ray Dalio's principles would become Bridgewater's internal Bible. Every choice, every action employees took would be judged based on these principles, and what Ray Dalio would have done in the same situation. Basically, instead of what would Jesus do, it was what would Ray Dalio do. and later it would evolve into Ray Dalio's best-selling book by the same name. And overall, most people agree that it's a good intellectual book that makes Ray Dalio look really good. But at Bridgewater, these principles, like how Bridgewater managers should treat their underlings as baseball cards, are taken to an extreme. Every day, employees are tested and graded on their knowledge of the principles. They're also given iPads so they can rate their co-workers and supervisors based on how well they adhere to the rules. These reviews go into each employee's permanent record and can be accessed by everyone at the company in the form of a baseball card. If you have a bad score, you'll be passed over for promotions and important jobs. If you have a good score, you'll move up in the company. All of this sounds a lot like China's social credit system. But wait, there's more. Just like how China's government is divided into different committees, at Bridgewater, the principles are enforced by a bunch of different committees. And these committees have pretty subtle names. There's the principal captains, who are the employees Dalio believes are the most knowledgeable on the rules. Their job is to assess how well employees follow the principles and whether they're acting the way Dalio would in the same situation. Then there's the auditors, who monitor department heads for the same thing, while the overseers are basically the snitches, who watch for even the smallest mistake. They can run up the chain of command to Dalio himself. And at the top of all these committees enforcing the principles is the Politburo. Yes, the top Bridgewater committee for their social credit system is literally named after China's highest governing body, the Politburo. Bridgewater's Politburo is made up of around 24 employees who are handpicked by Dalio himself to conduct investigations, sit in on meetings, and listen to recordings of HR disputes. It's the Politburo's job to get rid of difficult employees and make problems go away before they reach Dalio's desk. But wait, there's more. One of the most important principles according to Dalio is radical transparency, which means always being honest and telling the truth as it is, no matter what the situation or no matter if you're talking to a superior. Which sounds great and intellectual and amazing in theory, but this little rule also allows Bridgewater to record every single meeting, discussion, and gathering on premises, so they can use these recordings as case studies to show employees how not to act. When someone did something wrong, Dalio would publicly humiliate them on camera so future employees could see for themselves what the consequences were. Kinda like how if you jaywalk in a Chinese city with a social credit system, your face is gonna get plastered on their wall of shame. Same thing at Bridgewater. And despite all of this, Dalio still loves telling employees and the public that they can and should criticize him openly if he's wrong. According to him, the best gift anyone can receive is knowledge of their own weaknesses. But realistically, who is ever gonna criticize their boss to their face, especially when your boss is Ray Dalio? No one. Especially not when they found out that Larry Culp, who is now the CEO of General Electric, who was actually fired from Bridgewater for being a little too honest with Dalio. Bridgewater is a Chinese-inspired dictatorship, and Ray Dalio its supreme leader. It's gotten to the point where Bridgewater employees are so scared of pissing off Dalio that whenever he gets into an argument, he'll ask his assistant to send a company-wide poll asking who is right, and the answer is almost always him. So it's no wonder that employee turnover at Bridgewater is so high, with 1 out of every 4 employees leaving within the first 18 months. And it's no wonder that the idea that Bridgewater is a cult with a hedge fund attached to it is one of the longest running jokes on Wall Street. Ray Dalio played an instrumental role in China's rise to power. All this money and influence pouring in from the West is what has allowed China to do all the terrible things it does to its own population and to the world. Like how Chinese chemical companies are actively selling the precursor chemicals to fentanyl to Mexican cartels. This is a proven thing, by the way. These Chinese chemical companies have public websites that you can find where you can literally WhatsApp them to get these chemicals shipped straight to your door. No, we are not encouraging you to do this. But now China is even taking it a step further. China has been supplying the cartels with a new drug that can be even 40 times deadlier than fentanyl. It's called nitazenes. And in a year or two, this is all you're going to be hearing about on the news.
If you go not even deep into the internet, basically, if you find some open stores of chemical products for cleaning services, whatever, in China, most of them out in the open will offer you through WhatsApp, like really open stuff, a bunch of different products, including nitazenes. I myself have had communication with these companies in China. They speak through middlemen and stuff, but it's really out in the open. And I've said myself, I work for a criminal organization in Mexico. Is that an issue? They're like, no. This is not our first rodeo, right? We've been doing this for a while, so we know how to operate. So we know how to avoid our product getting seized, detected, or get you in trouble. So they're really, really on the open about this.
And we expose it all in our new private documentary that you can watch right now by clicking the card on the screen. We even show you censored screenshots of the websites and WhatsApp messages from these Chinese suppliers. This YouTube membership is where we get to post the really spicy videos we want to make, but that would definitely get demonetized like this one. We interview Luis Chaparro for this one, a cartel journalist that has a $60,000 bounty on his head right now. It's amazing, really proud of this one, so click the card on the screen to watch now.